What's up, and welcome to another edition of the Cover 2 Recap. As always, I'm BruinsSportsport.com publisher Edward Lewis. This is Ryan Karchi, the UCLA beat writer for the OC Register. We're here tonight at the Rose Bowl, where UCLA barely scraped by Memphis, 42-35. Ryan, give me your overall thoughts on tonight's game. The defense struggled. The offense looked better. Offensive line played a little bit better. Tell me some of the thoughts on the game and give me your analysis of the game.
Well, I think it should definitely be worrisome that both these first two performances are so uneven. I mean, a week ago, the defense looked pretty impressive. I mean, 3 touchdowns, outscored its own offense by 2 touchdowns. This week, the defense looked like a shell of that unit. I mean, you talk about Paxton Lynch, Memphis' quarterback, had more yards in this game than he'd ever had before against any team he's played in 2 years. We're talking about a quarterback who plays in the AAC. So that's definitely worrisome. They missed a ton of tackles. I mean, the secondary doesn't really look like the unit that we thought it would, especially Fabian Moreau. I thought, he's really struggled these first few weeks. There's basically no pass rush. Again, over 2 weeks, you have 1 sack, and that sack came at the very end of this game, albeit in a crucial spot. But still, I think at this point, the defense, there are obviously some concerns there, just like there seemed to be concerns on offense a week before. But it seemed like I'd be more confident in the offense after 2 weeks, just because you saw Brett Hundley kind of let it loose today. He looked a lot better. He had one beautiful 62-yard bomb to Kenny Walker, his first touchdown pass of the game. So for that, I mean, the run game looked pretty good. At this point, I'm not sure which one to be worried more about, but after the way the defense looked, I think maybe the defense going forward.
My biggest takeaway is the coaching aspect of it all. From a personnel standpoint, I didn't necessarily see anything wrong with what anybody did tonight. I know Fabian Moreau got kind of burned a lot, and I know they didn't get necessarily a great pass rush, but I thought it was all schematically. I thought Memphis had this beautiful game plan for it, and even when Fabian Moreau was getting burned, a lot of the times they would run like a little motion route, a little drag route or something, behind the line of scrimmage, and Fabian couldn't catch up to him as in man coverage, and the guy would just run by him, or Miles Jack would do the same thing, or a lot of their plays were a lot of misdirections. They'd run a fake here and go this way. I remember what Eric Kendrick called it, a power screen, where they'd fake a power and then run a little screen, and he said literally every time we bid on it, and I asked him why, and he said, well, we didn't practice it, and to me that just rang bells, and Jeff Ulbrich even admitted it. He said, look, we need to prepare better. We need to come up with more schemes. We need to throw more wrinkles. We can't be so predictable. I mean, I just thought they were thoroughly outcoached on the defensive side of the ball. The offensive side of the ball, I mean, Brett Hundley was magnificent, but I think even if he wasn't as good as he was, I thought they got a little bit outcoached there as well. I thought there was too many zone read little run plays that didn't work as well. I thought that was why the ground game kind of struggled. So the coaches themselves have to look at themselves first, because I think this team is still plenty talented. I think it's very, very, very good, and I think Memphis coach has said that. So tell me where UCLA goes from here. 2-0, obviously, but it's not the 2-0 we all thought it'd be. Where do they go from here?
Like you said, it kind of feels like a disappointing 2-0. But at this point, I think they just really need to focus inwardly. The offense, clearly, like you said, has the talent to make things work. I think going forward, you're going to need to keep kind of hammering that they need to get a run game. I know Paul Perkins looked a lot better today. He had 98 yards, 2 touchdowns on 23 carries. They even put Miles Jack in a little bit. He had a 4-yard touchdown run, even though he didn't really get much play. I know Noel Mazzoni said he wanted to use him in schemes later on in the year. But at this point, yeah, I think it's a matter of, like you said, these coaches really need to kind of take a hard look at the team that they have and start trying to get more out of it. I mean, with the offense, like I said, I don't think you have to worry too much. But defensively, I think they're going to need to, scheme, or you're going to need to scheme a little bit differently. You're going to meet offenses that are significantly stronger than Memphis, and Memphis had 496 yards. I mean, at that point, that's inexcusable. So when that Pac-12 slate comes up, I mean, you're going to get quarterbacks who are significantly better than Paxton Lynch, and they need to be ready. And luckily, they have Texas coming up, and Texas has kind of been a dumpster fire these last few weeks. And then you have a bye after that, so maybe it's good timing. But at this point, I would definitely be concerned if I'm UCLA.
Yeah, and I think the biggest key for me going forward is the growth of Jeff Ulbrich. I mean, tonight, if you watch the interview with him, he said, look, I need to be better. But last year, they would do this. Lou Spanos would come out. They'd struggle. I think during a couple of the non-conference games even, they would have a tough first half, and the second half, it was lights out. And I think that's because Lou had the experience. He knew what he needed to do. He knew the kind of adjustments he had to make. And I think Jeff is still kind of learning on the fly with all that. So his growth, I think, will be it'll take UCLA as far as his growth will take them. Let's get into Texas real quick. They play Texas this week. This is the next matchup. Tell me about your initial thoughts on that and how tonight changes that.
Well, initially, I think the offense will probably be enough. The defense that they're going to see in Texas is going to be a little bit better, probably than Memphis, maybe similar to what they saw at Virginia. But without David Ash, without their center, I know they had Tyrone Swoops, who's more of a dual threat guy, playing quarterback tonight. He didn't do very well against BYU. I think this is a game they can win, even being kind of uneven right now. But at the same point, you can't sleep on them. They need to use this opportunity to try to get both sides of the ball kind of in sync going forward, and then you have that bye. And I think as long as you go into this 3-0, maybe you can change some things in the bye. Then they're definitely not screwed going forward. But at this point, the alarm should definitely be sounding.
That'll do it for our coverage from tonight's UCLA-Memphis game. As always, you can follow Ryan's coverage of UCLA on Twitter at Ryan_Karchi. You can follow me on Twitter at EdwardLewisBSR. Until the next time, thanks for tuning in to the Cover 2 Recap.